Have you ever wondered what it truly means to be happy? Not just a fleeting moment of joy, but a deep, abiding sense of contentment and peace. Well, thousands of years ago, a Greek philosopher named Epicurus dedicated his life to answering that very question. And his answers, although born in a vastly different time, might just hold the key to unlocking a more fulfilling life, even today. Let me tell you more about it. Epicurus, a name that might conjure images of lavish feasts and indulgence. But what if I told you that the truth behind this ancient philosopher's teachings is far more nuanced and surprisingly relevant to our modern lives? Let's start from the beginning, shall we? Imagine a young Epicurus, born on the Greek island of Samos around 341 years before the Common Era. This was a time of great upheaval in the wake of Alexander the Great's conquests. Political instability, social unrest, a world in flux. Now think about your own life, the uncertainties you face. Doesn't it sometimes feel like the world around you is constantly shifting? Epicurus, even as a young man, was deeply affected by the turmoil of his era. This led him on a quest for a philosophy that could offer stability and tranquility in a chaotic world. He studied under various teachers, absorbing different philosophical ideas, but ultimately, he found them lacking. He felt the need to forge his own path, to develop a system of thought that addressed the fundamental anxieties of human existence. And so, around the age of 32, he established his own school, a place that would become known as the Garden. Now, when you hear the Garden, you might picture a secluded, exclusive academy. But Epicurus's garden was anything but that. It was a community open to all, men, women, even slaves. A radical concept for the time, don't you think? This wasn't just a school, it was a way of life, a haven where people could come together to pursue a shared goal, happiness. But not just any kind of happiness. Epicurus wasn't interested in fleeting pleasures or superficial joys. He was after something far more profound, something he called ataraxia, a state of tranquility, a mind free from disturbance, and aponia, the absence of physical pain. Now, how did he propose to achieve this enviable state? Well, that's where his core teachings come in. Epicurus believed that the root of our unhappiness lies in our fears and misguided desires. And he offered a powerful remedy, a four-part cure known as the tetrapharmakos. It sounds complicated, but trust me, the principles behind it are surprisingly simple and profound. The first tenet of the tetrapharmakos is this: don't fear the gods. Now, in Epicurus's time, the gods were often seen as capricious and vengeful beings, quick to punish any perceived slight. People lived in constant fear of divine retribution, but Epicurus had a different view. He believed that the gods, if they existed, were perfect, blissful beings, completely detached from human affairs. Why would such perfect beings concern themselves with the messy lives of mortals? They wouldn't. This idea was revolutionary. It freed people from the burden of religious fear, allowing them to focus on living their lives to the fullest, without the constant dread of divine punishment. Think about it. How much of your own anxiety stems from fear of the unknown, from forces seemingly beyond your control? Epicurus's message is clear. Let go of those fears. The second part of the cure is equally profound. Don't worry about death. This is perhaps the most universal fear of all, isn't it? The fear of ceasing to exist. But Epicurus offered a compelling counter-argument. He said, death is nothing to us. When we exist, death is not. And when death exists, we are not. It's a simple yet profound truth. When we are alive, death is not present. And when death arrives, we are no longer there to experience it. So why spend our precious living moments fearing something that we will never actually encounter? This concept might seem a bit abstract, but it has a powerful implication. It encourages us to focus on the present, on living fully in the here and now, rather than being paralyzed by the fear of what lies beyond. It's about appreciating each moment, each breath, each connection, because that's all we truly have. Now, the third part of the This might sound overly simplistic, but Epicurus is not talking about material possessions or fleeting pleasures. He's talking about the natural and necessary pleasures that truly contribute to a good life. Things like friendship, like meaningful conversation, like the simple joy of a warm meal, like the satisfaction of intellectual pursuits. These are the things that truly nourish the soul, and they are readily available to us if we know where to look. Epicurus believed that true pleasure isn't about excess, it's about the absence of pain, both physical and mental. And that brings us to the fourth and final part of the cure. What is terrible is easy to endure. This might seem counterintuitive at first. How can pain and suffering be easy to endure? But Epicurus was a keen observer of human nature. He argued that intense pain is usually short-lived, while chronic pain, though persistent, is generally mild enough to be managed. Think about it. A severe injury might cause intense pain initially, but the body has an amazing capacity to heal, and chronic conditions, while challenging, can often be managed with the right approach. But beyond the physical, Epicurus also emphasized the power of the mind to overcome suffering. By focusing on pleasant memories, by cultivating inner resilience, by finding solace in philosophy and friendship, we can endure even the most difficult circumstances. This is a message of hope, an affirmation of the human capacity to overcome adversity. Now, in addition to this four-part cure, there's another crucial element of Epicurean philosophy that we need to talk about, and it often gets misrepresented. It's the concept of pleasure. When you hear the word Epicurean, you might think of someone who indulges in every luxury, every sensual delight. But that's a gross misinterpretation of what Epicurus actually taught. He wasn't advocating for hedonism, for the unrestrained pursuit of pleasure. In fact, he warned against it. He believed that the highest form of pleasure is not the fleeting kind that comes from indulging our senses, but rather the enduring kind that comes from the absence of pain and mental disturbance. This is what he meant by aponia and ataraxia. It's about finding a state of equilibrium, a sense of inner peace and contentment that is not dependent on external circumstances. He distinguished between different types of desires, natural and necessary, like the desire for food and shelter, natural but not necessary, like the desire for sex or rich food, and vain and empty, like the desire for fame or power. He argued that only the natural and necessary desires should be fulfilled, and even those should be pursued in moderation. Why? Because pursuing unnecessary pleasures often leads to more pain in the long run. Think about the consequences of overeating or excessive drinking. The initial pleasure is quickly followed by discomfort, regret, and even health problems. Epicurus himself lived a remarkably simple life. His diet primarily consisted of bread and water. Now, before you dismiss this as extreme austerity, consider the reasoning behind it. By choosing a simple diet, he was freeing himself from the anxieties and dependencies that come with a constant pursuit of luxury and indulgence. He was demonstrating that true happiness doesn't come from external things, but from within. It's about being content with what you have, about appreciating the simple things in life. It is important to say that Epicurus also recognized that occasional indulgences, enjoyed in moderation and in the company of friends, could enhance pleasure without leading to negative consequences. He wasn't advocating for a life devoid of enjoyment. Rather, he was advocating for a mindful approach to pleasure, one that prioritizes long-term well-being over short-term gratification. He understood something that modern psychology is now confirming, that lasting happiness is not about chasing after every fleeting desire, but about cultivating a sense of inner peace and contentment. One of the most fascinating aspects of Epicurus's philosophy is his understanding of the human condition, even without the tools of modern science. Take, for example, his views on the nature of the universe. He was an atomist, believing that everything is made up of indivisible particles called atoms moving in a void. This might sound familiar, because it's remarkably close to our modern understanding of physics. Of course, he didn't have the technology to prove his theories, but his insights were based on careful observation and logical reasoning. It's a testament to his intellectual prowess that he was able to arrive at such conclusions thousands of years before they could be scientifically verified. Let's talk about another aspect of his philosophy that has sparked debate for centuries: the so-called paradox of Epicurus. This is a philosophical puzzle that questions the existence of an all-powerful, all-good God in the face of the evident evil and suffering in the world. It goes something like this: if God is willing to prevent evil but is not able to, then he is not omnipotent. If he is able but not willing, then he is malevolent. If he is both able and willing, then where does evil come from? And if he is neither able nor willing, then why call him God? Now, it's important to note that Epicurus himself may not have intended this as a direct attack on religion. He lived in a polytheistic society, and as we've discussed, he believed that the gods were indifferent to human affairs. Rather, the paradox can be seen as a philosophical exploration of the nature of divinity and the problem of evil. It's a question that has challenged theologians and philosophers for centuries, and it continues to be relevant today. Let's shift our focus back to the garden, to the community that Epicurus built around his philosophy. Imagine a group of people living together, sharing meals, engaging in philosophical discussions, and supporting each other in their pursuit of ataraxia. Friendship was central to Epicurus's philosophy. He believed that friends are essential for a happy life. They provide companionship, support, and intellectual stimulation. They help us navigate the challenges of life and celebrate its joys. In the garden, friendship was not just a social nicety, it was a vital part of the path to happiness. They understood something that we often forget in our hyper-connected, yet often isolating modern world: that genuine human connection is essential for well-being. Now, as with any influential thinker, Epicurus faced his share of criticisms throughout history. Some accused him of being a hedonist, a proponent of selfish indulgence, which, as we've discussed, is a complete misrepresentation of his teachings. Others criticized his withdrawal from public life, seeing it as a form of escapism. But Epicurus saw it differently. He believed that the political arena was too fraught with conflict and ambition, too likely to disturb one's inner peace. He chose to focus on cultivating a community where genuine happiness could flourish, away from the turmoil of public life. But here's where it gets really interesting. Let's fast forward to the present day and see how Epicurus's ideas resonate with modern science, particularly in the fields of neuroscience and psychology. Take, for example, his emphasis on moderation. Neuroscience is now showing us that the brain's reward system, the system that's activated when we experience pleasure, can be easily hijacked by excessive indulgence. When we constantly chase after intense pleasures, whether it's through food, drugs, or even social media, we can become trapped in a cycle of craving and dissatisfaction. The initial pleasure is fleeting, and we're left wanting more and more, leading to a kind of hedonic treadmill where we're constantly running but never actually getting anywhere. This is precisely what Epicurus warned against. He understood that true satisfaction comes not from maximizing pleasure, but from finding a balance, from appreciating the simple, natural pleasures that life has to offer. And what about the tetrapharmakos, his four-part cure for the soul? Well, it turns out that many of his principles align with modern psychological practices. Take, for instance, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, a widely used therapeutic approach that focuses on identifying and changing negative thought patterns. Doesn't that sound remarkably similar to Epicurus's advice to challenge our fears about death and the gods? By reframing our thoughts, by recognizing that many of our anxieties are based on irrational beliefs, we can free ourselves from their grip and cultivate a more peaceful state of mind. And his emphasis on the importance of friendship. Countless studies have shown that strong social connections are crucial for mental and physical health. People with strong social support networks tend to be happier, healthier, and even live longer. Epicurus was right on the money when he said that friendship is one of life's greatest goods. And what about the concept of resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity? Modern psychology has identified resilience as a key factor in mental well-being. And where did we first encounter the idea that what is terrible is easy to endure? That's right, in the tetrapharmakos. Epicurus recognized that pain and suffering are inevitable parts of life. but he also believed that we have the inner resources to cope with them, to find meaning even in the face of hardship. This is a message that resonates deeply with the modern emphasis on resilience and post-traumatic growth. Now let's consider the current trend towards minimalism, the idea of living with less. Doesn't that echo Epicurus's choice to live a simple life, free from the clutter of unnecessary possessions? Minimalism is about recognizing that material possessions don't bring lasting happiness. It's about prioritizing experiences over things, relationships over status symbols. It's about finding contentment in simplicity, just as Epicurus did. It's about consciously choosing what truly adds value to your life and letting go of the rest. It's about recognizing that true wealth lies not in what you own, but in the richness of your experiences and relationships. Doesn't that sound incredibly relevant to our consumer-driven culture, where we're constantly bombarded with messages telling us that we need more to be happy? So how can we apply these ancient principles to our modern lives? How can we incorporate the wisdom of Epicurus into our daily routines? Well, it starts with cultivating self-awareness, with paying attention to our thoughts, our emotions, and our desires. It's about asking ourselves, what truly matters to me? What brings me genuine, lasting joy? What are my fears, and are they based on reality? It's about consciously choosing how we spend our time and energy. It's about nurturing our relationships, cultivating meaningful connections with others. It's about finding joy in simple pleasures, a walk in nature, a good conversation, a shared meal. It's about practicing moderation in all things, recognizing that true satisfaction comes not from excess, but from balance. And perhaps most importantly, it's about recognizing that happiness is not a destination, but a way of traveling. It's not something to be achieved, but something to be cultivated day by day, moment by moment. It's about finding peace in the present, rather than constantly striving for a future that may never arrive. The beauty of Epicurus's philosophy is that it's not tied to any particular religious belief. It's a philosophy for everyone, regardless of their background or worldview. It's a timeless guide to living a good life, a life of purpose, meaning, and contentment. It's a reminder that true happiness is not about what we have, but about who we are and how we choose to live. Epicurus's wisdom, though born centuries ago, offers a powerful antidote to the anxieties and excesses of modern life. His insights into human nature, his emphasis on reason, friendship, and simple pleasures, his profound understanding of the nature of happiness, all of these remain as relevant today as they were in his time. And while science has advanced our understanding of the world in ways that Epicurus could never have imagined, it has in many ways corroborated his core principles. Modern neuroscience and psychology are providing empirical evidence for what Epicurus intuited long ago, that a life well lived is one characterized by moderation, meaningful connections, and a focus on inner peace. But it's crucial to remember that science doesn't replace philosophy. It complements it. Science can tell us how the brain works, but it can't tell us how to live a good life. That's where philosophy comes in. Epicurus offers us not just a set of abstract ideas, but a practical guide to living, a roadmap to navigating the complexities of human existence. His philosophy is an invitation to question our assumptions, to examine our values, and to consciously choose a path that leads to genuine, lasting happiness. So as you go about your day, I invite you to reflect on the wisdom of Epicurus. Ask yourself, what truly matters? What brings you joy? How can you cultivate more ataraxia, more tranquility in your life? How can you live more fully in the present moment? And perhaps, just perhaps, you'll find that the answers you seek have been waiting for you in the garden all along. The path to a more fulfilling life might just be simpler than you think. It's about finding contentment in the everyday, in the natural pleasures that are always available to us, if only we choose to see them. The journey towards a more meaningful existence is not about grand gestures or extraordinary achievements. It is about the small, consistent choices we make each and every day, moment by moment. And in those choices, we have the power to shape not only our own lives, but the world around us. This is the enduring legacy of Epicurus, a legacy that continues to inspire and challenge us, even after all these centuries.